and places root us in community. And there's some places around Pasadena that seem to root some of us here at Troop, because I tend to run into you all at those places, like Vroman's Bookstore. Y'all hang out and get a lot of books there, don't you? Limley Theater, I run into you, farmers markets, and the Huntington Gardens. And I call that one of my happy places. Yes, I think because it's so beautiful, but I think also because as a home gardener, I can go into the Huntington, and no matter where I sit, A, nothing ever seems to be out of place there. I don't know how they do that. I guess it's lots of money. And then B, they don't expect me to weed or water when I go in there. Hallelujah. Well, I'm at home, it's like every little viewscape I have, there's always like a stray weed or something that needs my attention. And have you been to the Huntington, any of you, this summer? Hopefully you're not going today, it's a little warm. Well, if you've been in the Chinese gardens, then you may have seen this beautiful art installation that kind of hangs over the lake there. Have you been in to see that? Yeah, Jim Latham, Sky has. Well, go if you can, and if you don't have a membership, a lot of us here have one, and we would love to take you to the Huntington at some point. So it's this beautiful, it's these set of 5 banners, and they're big. One of them is 18 feet long, and there's a local Chinese-American artist who created these beautiful banners that are there. And when you look at them, it's white, whatever the background is, and then there's like all these black drawings on it. And as you look at it and see what the title of it is, An Offering to Roots, it's depictions of these like root balls, root masses, and barren trees. And so they hang there reflecting on the lake as you're also looking out at the beautiful like stones and gardens. And it's somewhat of a juxtaposition. And when you read about what inspired this artist to do these, he was actually inspired by the devastating wildfires that happened up in Northern California over the past 2 summers. And I think it was just last Labor Day weekend that we were here with the theme of fire for our own worship service, and Northern California was ablaze. And so he was up there and was just watching these beloved forest and natural places just, turn like black and burn and forever changed. And he knew that those are happening because of climate change, that's what's causing them. And as he looked out over the landscape and the tree canopy's gone and the underbrush is gone, one of the things he noticed is that these roots that had been invisible were suddenly upturned out of the earth, and that he could see them. And so out of this destruction, he was able to see the actual beauty of these underlying roots that were, so part of our natural system that we don't usually see. Oh, thank you. And Sky just handed me a picture, and the artist's name is Tong, and I'm too scared to say the rest of the name, but Aaron Bray will say it beautifully to you. I knew I was going to get up here and get scared. And if you looked at the Tuesday tidings this past Tuesday, there was an image of these 5 banners at the top of the Tuesday tidings. Thank you. So as Tong was thinking about this art piece that he was about to create, he wrote these words. He said, "Tree roots lost their grip. After all, they are but plants. And though things like trees seek to live without fear, humanity harms their core. Moved by this, despondency welling in my chest, I transmitted my thoughts with brush and ink, confiding through images, an elegy for roots, an offering of pictures. So many of us here are no strangers to just being able to note and hold our own grief about the effects of climate change. We don't pretend like it's not happening. Some of us may not want to talk about it all the time, but I know for me at least, it kind of resides right under the surface, like every day, almost with every breath. And we know that climate change is impacting our earth, but we at Troop know it's also impacting our very own well-being. Perhaps it impacts our own sense of fear about what we see changing around us. So this afternoon after the service, Tom Hawkins and George Patton, they're actually going to hold a gathering and a space for, if you want to come together and just be able to say out loud some of the grief or fear or anxiety that you yourself are holding, and get to debrief it a little bit about the ways that both we as humans and the animal world and our whole earth is hurting right now. So Liz, as I thought about today that I've been eagerly anticipating for quite a while, this particular image of roots, this gnarled network that's rarely exposed, but being the focus of Tong's paintings, speaking to his own despair, that actually felt really fitting to me as you begin this ministry with us. Over the next 2 years here, you're likely going to find yourself in creative tension. And so on the one hand, you're going to be continually called to identify what roots you in your spiritual life and what roots you in particular as a Unitarian Universalist minister and pastor. Through writing sermons and leading classes, advocating for justice, offering pastoral care, you're going to be reflecting on why and how you do those things, not just as Liz Murphy, but Liz Murphy, the intern minister, rooted in this people and place of Troop and in Pasadena. And so you'll be holding that reality, hopefully joyfully, without too much despondency. But then you're also going to be holding what piece is informing me in our UU history that is, yes, inspiring me, but is also challenging me. What lessons am I going to take from our UU past and pass it along to our people? And then what are some of those lessons from our Unitarian Universalist past and culture and history that, while they were great at that time, simply don't work for us and this faith community today? And you'll be in this tension and in dialogue with yourself, with Troop, with our larger faith community about how you untangle and make sense of that. Some of what you come in here with today and that you are certain that is rooting you in your call to ministry, if we're all doing our job right, I think I mean this when I say it, you may question a little bit of it based on your experience here. And some of it may lose their grip on you. You may pick up some of those gnarled roots and look at them and hold them and think, these were at a time beautiful and meaningful and relevant for me. And I'm going to be able to set it aside now, because it's not working for me and it's not working for Unitarian Universalism. We are living and ministering and being good people of faith at a time in our world where it feels really unstable, does it not? And I often wonder about the people who first gathered Troop, which was First Universalist Parish of Pasadena in 1886, and I just long to know what was in their hearts and minds as they gathered those good people over at the corner of Colorado and Fair Oaks. Did the world seem uncertain, unstable, and chaotic in 1886? I am absolutely sure that parts of it did to some people. But it seems like for us, those taproots of certainty have been pulled out of the ground. And I've been feeling it so acutely as we move into this fall season amidst tweets and proclamations that don't really seem based in truth, I'll say. So these days when so much feels up in the air, when some of the roots being exposed to the light show us things that we would rather leave buried way down deep in the ground that surely do not work for us today. Liz, you're coming into Unitarian Universalist ministry when not only the outside world, but also our denomination is struggling mightily. And we are making some mighty mistakes as a faith movement as we try and fail and try again to deconstruct a religious institution that was built upon the foundations of the cultures that were dominant at the time of our creation. Just some of those are white culture, heteronormative culture, and able-bodied culture. And I don't say any of that. If you identify with one of those, I don't say it to make you feel bad or lesser, but just that's what was in the mix as Unitarian Universalism was being created. And so here we are, trying our best to deconstruct and reconstruct our beloved faith into a more multicultural, multi-gendered, multi-experienced community of people, so that when we say to someone, all of who you are is sacred and all of who you are is welcome here, that's not only meaningful for me as the person who is saying it, but whoever is the recipient of those words feels it in their heart and in their bones, and they know without a doubt that yes, they can bring every part of their being here and be seen and loved and held, and we will seek to understand and be in relationship. So as we're in this time where it seems like our taproots of certainty are being pulled out of the ground, what roots us? As liberal people of faith, as Unitarian Universalists, what roots us here at Troop? Individually, that answer will be different, and it should be. But collectively, as a liberal religious people, it's that thing that has always rooted Unitarians and Universalists from our very earliest days. It's that thing that set us apart and led some people to name us as heretics. And it's our belief that God is ever changing, not static. And whether you are sitting in the pew right now as someone who knows with certainty that God, wherever that God is, knows you as an individual, or whether you are someone who has a sense of God or sacred as a higher power that is journeying along in this life with you, if you are someone who thinks of it as a breath of the universe connecting all beings, if you are someone who is sitting there and says, I know with absolute certainty there is no God, I hear you. You are welcome here. And what connects, I would say, 90 to 95% of us is that no matter where you fall on that theological landscape, that we can say with some certainty that whatever it is we believe so deeply right now in our hearts and minds, that we understand that may shift and change as new truths ever come forward to illuminate our minds. We believe that revelation is always unfolding, that mystery is in front of us, that we can change, that we can be changed by others. Rilke wrote, "Be patient toward all that is unresolved in your heart. Try to love the questions themselves. Do not seek the answers which cannot be given to you, because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps you will gradually, without knowing it, live along some distant day in the future. And us living into those questions means that some of you will stumble with hearts open into Tom and George's wisdom circle after service. And just hold all that you don't know and all that we are facing in this climate crisis, and yet you'll stumble in also with a little bit of hope, because maybe together we'll find an answer that we wouldn't have come to on our own. Or maybe you are going to live into that question by getting out into our garden because you have decided that one way to serve this greater community is to offer up a little bit of fruit or a kale or herbs so that someone can have something fresh and surprising and unexpected on their way home from work. Maybe you're someone who is deciding right now, today, for the very first time, opening it up to your own self as a reality that the way you have been living your life has been a little closed in. And as such, it's been closing you off from whatever you know as sacred from your fellow human beings. And that the way to some sort of deeper question is being in relationship. And these uncertain times when roots are being upturned all around us, our religious impulse to live the questions positions each one of us to stay resilient, to find hope and inspiration even in the midst of despair. So I invite you as you move out into this week to reach down to the strength and roots that hold you and reach up to the light, out with your beauty, reaching out for the love that dwells among us. There is more love somewhere. Please rise as we sing More Love 95.